Rogers is a Pittsburgh hero.
Mr. Rogers was so creative, a musical genius.
Mr. Rogers is someone who we should all aspire to be like.
Mr. Rogers was so sincere and caring, a perfect neighbor.
Mr. Rogers was a significant part of my childhood.
Mr. Rogers taught us how to use our imagination.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine?
50 years ago, the first episode of an inspiring children's show was broadcasted across America. Over 895 episodes, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood taught generations of audiences important messages like keeping kindness attractive. The messages Mr. Fred Rogers conveyed through both stories and music inspired the homes of neighborhoods everywhere. It especially resonated with the community of Pittsburgh, which is home to the studio that Mr. Rogers broadcasted his show from.
Might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine?
In the fall of 2018, the movie A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood was stationed in Pittsburgh. Here is an interview with one of the people who worked on the film here in Pittsburgh.
There's kind of a short list of people that, you know, when you think of Pittsburgh, you really think of that person, and Mr. Rogers is definitely one of those. Mr. Rogers to me is just, I mean, in one word, he's just kind. There's a lot of lessons that can be learned from Mr. Rogers still. It's still relevant to this day, and I think it will be for many, many years to come.
The movie A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood is scheduled to release in October of this year. Just outside of Pittsburgh, a local school district celebrated Mr. Rogers through an 8-minute competitive marching band show. The Penn Trafford High School marching band show featured iconic songs that brought the messages of Mr. Rogers to life. There were songs such as It's You I Like and It's Such a Good Feeling. The band director, Mr. Cornelius, provided insight on the inspiration for the show.
Mr. Rogers was an amazing human being, and it just seemed to be the right decision to base our 2018 production on him. We have used Won't You Be My Neighbor in this show for both the opener, which is kind of a slower, down-tempo arrangement of Won't You Be My Neighbor, and then we bring that back at the end. The third part of our show is not a Mr. Rogers piece at all, but it's entitled A Childhood Hymn. It's by the composer David Holsinger, and it's based on the melody from Jesus Loves Me. It's such a beautiful, beautiful piece, and we're able to put some of the sound drops and some of the voiceovers of Mr. Rogers from his show over top of what the band is playing.
Special thanks to my family and friends, and to my co-workers in public broadcasting, family communications, and this academy for encouraging me, allowing me all these years to be your neighbor.
The fourth part of our show is Such a Good Feeling, and that's the song that Mr. Rogers, he wrote it, but he also performed it at the end of each of his episodes whenever he was taking his sweater off and hanging it back up. It was just a staple of me growing up every afternoon watching that. It didn't matter whether you were a boy or a girl or tall or short or anything like that. His messages rang true for so many of us. And I think that that's how we've tried to incorporate the vision of his show and being open-minded and helpful to just try to incorporate those types of ideals into the show have made it a lot of fun.
The band was honored when a special guest came to support them in their show at their send-off performance before their final championship competition. We sat down with Mrs. Rogers before she watched the marching band show.
Of all the ways that the 50th anniversary of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood has been recognized recently, does it surprise you at all that a marching band has decided to pay tribute by dedicating their whole show to it?
It's the most wonderful surprise.
Why do you think the memory of Mr. Rogers has such a great staying power and is still relevant today, his message?
Because I do wonder about it. Amanda, do you have any ideas?
I was thinking, as I was reading up and studying a little bit more on Mr. Rogers, I know that his message pertained a lot to self-love and loving others and treating everybody kindly and as your neighbor. And I really believe that helps make it stay so long and it resonates with people, just kindness in general.
That's just wonderful, and I don't think anybody could say it better, Amanda. It's just, people are, there are a lot of very good people.
Now, I know a lot of people ask you about what Mr. Rogers would feel, but what do you feel about the staying and lasting power of just his message to be kind?
Let's try to make goodness attractive. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's very hard. But I think it's so worthwhile. And I think that being kind is the best way we know to make goodness attractive.
Well, we enjoy having you here very much, and we are
Thank
very
you.
blessed to have you here.
Thank you, my dear. I'm delighted, and I'm looking forward to the music. I love Fred's music.
We are so excited to perform for you, and I hope that it meets your standard, because I know, Will, you've come to the right place if you're looking for a wonderful performance.
I'm right here, and I've been waiting for it for a while now. So.
Mrs. Rogers was happy to see her husband's messages living on through the band's performance. Not only has the band carried on the long-lasting legacy, but it continues through generations of family and television with Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood.
Let's go see some neighbors.
The show carries on the beloved children's story of Mr. Rogers, and Daniel sports the red sweater and sneakers just like him. Like Mr. Rogers, Daniel now teaches the new generations the old ideas that Mr. Rogers taught.
Good job, buddy.
I like these visits with you.
As the 50th anniversary of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood goes by, remember to be kind, to be yourself, and most importantly, to be a good neighbor.